Hello, everyone. This is Cody Lee of BlackCatBooks.org, author of I the Dragon, Cruel and Beautiful Rabbit Hole, King DL, Lauren Frey, Grim Clover, Internet Bloodsports, City of Steel, and the upcoming Jaw of the Dragon. So, the Cyberpunk fanboys are at it again. I've been talking about these people for years, before the game even came out, actually, because I kind of foresaw where the game was headed. As early as 2015, I was saying that like Cyberpunk 2015 was 2077 was going to be a disappointment, that it was going to have a lot of problems, that people were going to like write them off and ignore them in order to hype up CD Projekt Red as the next big thing. I I was very critical of CD Projekt Red, more so I think than anyone else alive. And even I vastly underestimated just how big of a disaster Cyberpunk 2077 would end up being. It was completely unplayable. So unplayable, in fact, that Sony actually removed the game from their e-store for a good long while. I don't know if it's back yet or anything, but I haven't been keeping up with this game at all. Like, my view on this was that the game was a disaster and that it would sink CD Projekt Red. And I don't know if that was incorrect exactly, because I've seen how projects like Good Old Games, which they own, has gone downhill. I've seen like how people aren't excited for Witcher 4. I'm well aware there's no possible way they could recover from this, but the thing is, the very disappointing thing is it seems that like the vast majority of the gaming community does not agree with me. In fact, I noticed right from the onset that there were a lot of people trying to say that the game ran perfectly fine if you had like a high-end PC, which I'm well aware is not actually true. It was YouTubers preemptively damage controlling a big brand that they could use to milk money off of, right? Like I can't give you any names. I don't remember these people, but there was a big push for the idea that like eventually CD Projekt Red would patch the game, that it would be fixed, that it would be good, and that simply was never going to happen. The game was just fundamentally flawed from the onset. It was never going to live up to any of its promises. But the thing is, recently something major has changed. Something I really did not anticipate. A PR stunt that I think is downright deplorable, in that CD Projekt Red commissioned Studio Trigger, the anime studio, to produce a CD Projekt Red Cyberpunk 2077 official anime, which was apparently well received. People apparently liked it. It wasn't like it isn't like pissing people off or anything. Like maybe it's not very good. I know what anime fans are like. They'll praise like anything as long as it has a cute girl in it, which seems to be the case for this thing. Um, I've 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 seen how the community has reacted to this, and it is downright disgusting. Right? This anime, that's exclusive to Netflix, has somehow revitalized the Cyberpunk 2077 community to the point where there are a number of shills on 4chan right now trying to tell you the game has been saved, that it's good now, that they're gonna make a recovery from this. It's not gonna happen, obviously. But like the fact that this is happening at all, the fact this is allowed to happen, that there's no pushback against it, that mods aren't pruning these threads, that this is like obviously a No Man's Sky style shill campaign, it's downright disgusting to me. Like more people should be acknowledging that yeah, Cyberpunk 2077 was a failure. It's never going to be successful. And yet because like worshiping these corporations is so ingrained in the gamer culture, they're going to stick by these products no matter what. And like I think it goes beyond simple game journalist corruption at this point, because I think it's undeniable at this point that like the vast majority of people who like believe this stuff, that like the game is good now, that it's been like radically improved, that it's worth playing, are the gaming community, because there are people who are like watching this stuff and think it's true. Right? There were plenty of people who thought that like No Man's Sky made a recovery when that was never really the case. Like No Man's Sky was a disaster from the onset, but because of because of the people tied with the game, they were able to like promote it and like keep it in the public consciousness and somehow meme everyone into thinking that this game was like highly popular and highly successful with like lots of really innovative updates that help the game live up to its initial promise, which of course is not and never will be true. The game is still fundamentally flawed. It's never going to be what Sean Murray said it was. But like you can't expect people who hate these video games to like religiously hate on them forever. That's kind of the thing I've noticed is that like someone like me who like, hated No Man's Sky, hated Cyberpunk 2077, hated Red Dead Redemption 2. I'm not going to be talking about them forever. That's the thing is that like I've like taken a step back from gaming. I've stopped playing stuff like God of War 2018 and Days Gone, all right, in order Uncharted, in order to focus on like my personal life and um book stuff, right? Like I spent like all night last night, like catching up on our reading, going through all these volumes of One Piece, going through all these crime novels, reading history, reading some classic things. There was a lot of good stuff there, like, and I had a blast, and I had a lot more fun than I would have if I had, taken the night to stream God of War 2018, right? And then like did an in-depth analysis on like why the game doesn't work and why it's not good. Like first of all, if I did that analysis, like nobody would pay attention to it. It's going to be like the same thing we get every single time where they just tell you that like, oh no, you only hate this product because you're a Nintendo fanboy. It's the same thing over and over and over again. People write off any criticisms you have. They ignore you. They try to call you a shill, despite being like much bigger shills themselves. It's it's ridiculous. It really is ridiculous that we've gotten to the point where you can't criticize like objective failures like CD Projekt Red anymore. Like we've gotten to the point where like Cyberpunk 2077 was so terrible that it probably sunk the company. And like people still are not acknowledging that Cyberpunk 2077 was bad. Like we're still seeing a lot of damage control. And a lot of it was like promoted by this anime, but like that really should never have happened. Like the way this anime should have been viewed was that like, oh, it's a good spin-off piece of media based on this property that everyone hates. Okay. That should have been like the mindset. Like people should be praising Trigger. They shouldn't be going back to CD Projekt Red. They shouldn't be praising like the original game and saying it's good now. They should have just watched the anime and then said, for a show based on a game that wasn't very good, this was actually pretty well put together. I doubt the anime was very good either, to be honest with you. But like this feels inorganic as fuck. It does really feel like there's a strong a strong like shill campaign for certain things. It does come off that way that like the gaming industry is trying to manipulate the audience to react in a certain way. Like I think you can kind of tell the language where they tried like shitting on like the women who objected to like the attractive female characters in Cyberpunk 2077. Like it reminds me a lot of like Overwatch, right? Where like Blizzard initially released all these sexy promotional materials and then like scrubbed them off the internet once the game was actually out. Like once people actually bought it. Like they hate doing that, but like without it, like, they can't really get people to talk about their game, right? Because like the game itself does not have any merit. Like we're at that point now where people are like buying and playing games purely because they're gamers and not because they like actually like and appreciate the games they're playing. Like that's been like a big thing for me over the past couple of years was that like I bought a PS3 based on peer pressure from the people I was around, all right? People who told me that like the real games were on PlayStation 3, that it was just way better than the Wii. And of course, like over time, I realized that wasn't true and never was true. Like the PS2 I had, which I never used, it just wasn't as good as the GameCube, right? Wasn't as good as the Wii, wasn't as good as N64. Never got any mileage out of it. Like I always felt like I was missing something. But like what it turns out is that like everyone I was talking to about video games just simply knew nothing about them and was just regurgitating shit they heard from like Game Informer or some corrupt gaming magazine, right? Like, it's just they weren't forming their own opinions. They weren't playing the game. And as such, they have no interesting discourse about them. And I think that's the problem is that in the current year, we're seeing YouTubers who don't play games telling their audience who don't play games what to think about games, what to think about like gaming culture and what's happening right now with certain things. And like it's become like such a notable trend. It, it's gotten such a big deal that like I personally do not like talking about games outside of my YouTube channel. Yeah, that's right. I'm a hobbyist. I don't make money off of doing this. It's just something I enjoy doing. But the thing is, I've actually stopped browsing 4chan and like NeoGAF and Reset Era and any other gaming forum website, game FAQs, because nobody is saying anything interesting about games. Like people aren't being critical of them. They aren't making adequate points. They aren't talking about things that are interesting or things maybe you didn't notice or things that like m- games you might not have ever heard of. All they're doing is regurgitating nonsense that they've heard online elsewhere, right? Like it's not about games anymore. And to me, someone who actually likes video games, it's gotten to the point where like I just don't really feel like engaging with these people to any in any real capacity because I see people like Review Tech USA like talking shit about the Nintendo Direct when I know perfectly well that like he's not playing any of the games that are actually coming out. All right, like I know perfectly well what Review Tech USA is like. I've been following for years. I know, right? Like, and I see it from other YouTubers too. People who are like rage quitting for clicks. I don't understand why Josh Thomas from the BitBlock would do an hour and a half stream like shitting on the Nintendo Direct when there really isn't anything to talk about. Like I did the same thing in like 10 minutes, right? Something like that. Like I don't it's so weird to see where things are going right now. It does feel like the gaming community is more about like talking about games than actually like sharing your experiences with them or talking about playing them. And it's been something I've always disliked about this community, but it's been getting worse and worse as time goes on. And I do think it's something that I openly disavow.